Do you want to meet new people, but you are anxious and maybe a little bit awkward? If so, this is the ultimate podcast episode for you. Welcome to the What's Eating You podcast. I'm your host, Stephanie, and I'm a psychologist, published author, and public speaker here to educate and validate. Enjoy the show. Today, I'm having a very honest, raw chat with Ash, the founder of the Hype Girl Social Club. This is a community that runs fun and empowering friendship-making events for women in their 20s and 30s. Ash is also a physio, life and mindset coach, health professional mentor, and content creator. Ash, welcome to the What's Eating You podcast. What is happening? I can't believe how we met. I can, because social media,
I know. I know. We're just talking about it off air about how it's one of those weird things where you like come across someone and then you like know their face, but
yeah,
because
and
I want to feed somewhere.
me too. And when I looked at your profile, I was like, yes, I've always wanted to find something, which is what you do basically, which are events to make friends. So I want to know, what ate you? What was like your thing that was affecting your life or getting in the way? And is that what led you to do what you do today with these groups?
Yeah, 100%. There's a long and short story. The short story is very much that I started this off a complete whim, armed with nothing but like Canva and a dream. Like I just was on a walk with a friend that we have this like weekly ritual. We get coffee and walk every Thursday morning. We've been doing that together since lockdown because we were like she was the only friend that we crossed over with for anyone who lived in Melbourne and lived through that trauma. But we were walking, getting coffee, and I was talking to her about how I wanted to start some sort of community because I suppose through like my work as a physio coach, and I had a big background in women's health, I'd gained a bit of a very small, admittedly, following on Instagram. So I had this little online community that I wanted to transition into something in real life. And I was on this walk with my friend, getting coffee, walking, and it like all of a sudden dawned on me. I was like, holy shit,
girlfriend.
oh my God, am I allowed to swear on this podcast? I was like, women walk either by themselves, headphones on, world out, like your typical hot girl walk, or they walk with one other friend, and that is it. There is no other, outside of obviously gyms and fitness classes and things like that, there's no other like space for women to connect that isn't like high energy run clubs and things like that. So not only is there a barrier to connection, but there's so many barriers to women moving their bodies as well. And so I just was like, out of nowhere, I was like, I'm going to start a walking club. And it was right as run clubs were taking off in Melbourne. Also, what if I start a run club and everyone's faster than me and I'm at the back like trying to direct them? That's embarrassing. So hence the walk club was born. And I suppose it's just grown from there. But the long of it, like I said, is I've had a background in women's health. I have been like a absolute champion for women's health, as in I will champion women till the cows come home. I've been supporting women since I was 10 years old, coaching my younger sister's basketball team. I've always just been so passionate about empowering and supporting women. And I guess somewhere along the lines, and with my own experience of struggling to make friends in my 20s and feeling really lonely, all of that came to some sort of...
And I love the idea of walking for enjoyment, socialization. I think many women, especially women in our age demographic, we have associated exercise with weight loss. And a lot of people think, oh, everything has to be high intense, or I have to exercise only if it's the purpose of my fitness. But sometimes you just want to chill. You just want to go for a chill walk. You just want to chat to people. So I love this idea of walking for reasons, not only just for exercise, which is very important, but to get our other needs met. Because you're right, after COVID, we all became a little bit weird and isolated. Is that the reason so many people have anxiety? I mean, I should know the answer because I'm a psych, but I'm curious to know from your perspective and the people who attend your events, are they scarred from the Melbourne trauma? Because I was in Melbourne when all of that happened as well.
Yeah, 100%. I think there's definitely been a shift post-pandemic in the sense of not only is it harder to make friends because we lost a lot of our friendship groups or we fell out of touch or people moved away during the pandemic, but also acknowledging just like life stages and being in your 20s and moving out of uni or out of home and away from friends and those sorts of things. But I think definitely, particularly for people in Melbourne, we're seeing this really big boom at the moment and demand for in-person connection. And I think a lot of that is just born off the back of like, yeah, we were locked in our houses for so long. Before the pandemic, I was like as extroverted as they come. I remember chatting to friends on a Friday and they'd ask what I'm doing for the weekend. And I'd like, but not much, and proceed to rattle off like 7 things that I have on, like different catch ups or coffees with friends. I was always like, I hated being alone and by myself. And then somewhere during the pandemic, obviously I was forced to get used to that. And it definitely got really hard. I remember post-pandemic really struggling, even as the like innate extrovert that I am, to get myself out of the house to things. It's like this overwhelming, like I can't be bothered, or social anxiety, or being in like crowded rooms and busy environments, and not experiencing that for 2.5, almost 3 years. That's a lot to dive back into. I think slowly now, 2024, we're getting to the point where that's become normal again. But I guess that's now when people are realizing that, oh shit, like I need to get out of the house and I need to make friends. And we're really starting to only now see.
I agree. So much was hard about going back into normal life. For me, it was wearing bras. I fully boycotted wearing bras during COVID. Oh man, I have a 1-hour bra limit a day. Like I went and put a sports bra on for this interview because I'm like, I can't do it anymore. This is so restraining.
Totally. I live in a sports bra. It helps I'm a physio and I live in activewear, but I have one underwire bra now. That's all I own. It's I such a small limit.
As a physio, is it really bad to not wear bras consistently? Am I what's the situation?
That is a great question. I don't think we have enough research on it, as we don't for many, many things. I think the key there is support, like postural support, but it doesn't necessarily have to be.
Perfect. So I remember I had a friend who used to sleep with bras because she's like you have to support them 24/7, and then people were like, no, bras give you cancer, and I don't know. It's just such a crazy world.
Yeah. Yeah. I have.
All right. Anyways, I love that you just had an idea to create this. I actually had a similar thing. I created something called Brunch Club, and this was before the pandemic. I used to actually do brunch blogging. That was my thing in Melbourne, and that was my Instagram. But the only reason I pivoted to psychology was because I couldn't go to cafes. But I used to run brunch club events where people would meet up to learn about how to take good photos and post things on Instagram, because I just turn everything into a business. But have you turned this into a business?
Yeah, I have. So it started as a little like just cute little walking club. And I remember, like I said, I was armed with nothing but like Canva and a dream. I put it up on TikTok like at 5 p.m. the night before the Sunday morning. And I had like teed up 2 friends to come along. So I was like absolutely paranoid that no one was going to show up. But I was like, worst case scenario, I've got my 2 friends and that's fine. But I woke up and that one video that I put having like 47,000 views, and it had like 400 saves overnight. And I was like, what if 400 people come? I don't know what to do with that. Thankfully, 400 people did not come.
That's huge.
Did. And I was like so blown away from the get-go. That is our like first one. People, like all these girls, I'm like just sitting at the cafe and these girls would just walk up looking a little lost and confused. They'd be like, are you?
That's me.
And I'm like, yeah, I guess. And we just got coffee and we went on our little walk. And I suppose it's just grown from there. So I've just been growing with the community as people were like, we want more events. So I started doing events. And like I said, I'm a physio. Like I am not an event planner. Although like when I did plan my wedding, I remember saying, I'm pretty sure I missed my calling as an event planner. I love planning a party. But yeah, I just started and still am just going with the flow of what people want and where the demand is, which so far has been like working pretty well. But yeah, I've turned it into a business. The walks are still free. I still put them on for free for the community, and the events that we run.
I love that, because there's business events like Women in Business and all business and business, but sometimes people just want an event for like fun and motivation and socializing and all that. That's sick. We should run an event sometime.
Yes, we absolutely should. That would be awesome. Yeah, I like the events really, like I said, are just in demand with the community. And so there's a bit of a mix of We've done some dinners and some more like low-key things like that. We've done some more like crafty nights, had a paint and sip and a pottery. We did silent disco, some fitness like Pilates and spin classes. So it's kind of like so far, hopefully something for everyone, or maybe not everyone, but depending where the demand is. But the key across all of them is exactly what you just said. They're really casual in the sense of I don't pair and match people up. And I've spoken about this before. It's really hard to describe to people, but it's like fascinating to watch at the events that I run. I don't pair anyone for the reason that there's places out there or companies that do that. And if that's something that you're looking for, there's spaces and places you can go. But I think something that when I was sitting down to run my first event, I was like, do I match people? Do I pair them based on likes and interests? And when I thought about it, I was like, if I were to go to an event where I know I'm getting put on a table with someone that I, on paper, should get along with, we like the same things, we have the same interests, and then we don't get along because there's much more that goes into connecting with someone, like values, life stages, like other things that you can bond over. I feel like that would almost be like, that would deter me from, it's sort of like, I feel like, and maybe this is just me in my brain, but I feel like I would be like, what's wrong with me? Why can't I make friends with the people that I should be making friends with? Because we like the same things. And so I really wanted to keep it very casual. And what's been really amazing to witness at every event that we've ever done is, despite the fact that we don't pair anyone up, is just everyone almost instantly is just like chatting and yapping and bubbling away and giggling. And it's people just, I think, flock to their people. And I can't describe it other than what I'm able to witness, which is just that like instinctive connection of like you get drawn to people who match your vibe or your energy, or and so it's amazing to watch. But and I think too, like my thing is, if you're all showing up to the same event, like if you've all booked a Pilates class or a pottery, chances are you have at least one thing in common, and that's the thing that you came here to do.
I love that. And what kind of people go to these events? Are these people who are socially anxious? Are these people who are more, I don't know, neurodiverse? Are these people who are more extroverts? Anyone?
Literally anyone. And it's such a big mix. I'm sure that like, at least probably initially, you know, you probably naturally, the first people in the door are the extroverts that are like loud and don't find it too hard to make friends. But slowly over time, like we're getting quite a lot of people coming through now that are like the long time lurkers, first time attendees. They've been stalking and sitting back and watching for a little while. And then maybe that is because social anxiety or just feeling really nervous or worried about what to expect. But do finally make it. I inevitably always get some sort of like DM or comment, like something along the lines of, I can't believe I waited this long. It really is. And I think whether that's like the marketing or just the community that we've built, everyone is so welcoming and kind and relatively like-minded. Even if we like different things, we're like at least probably have some shared values around connection and openness and vulnerability. So far, you know, I can't say, I don't know if everyone's had a good experience.
Yes.
Like I haven't heard otherwise.
Do you feel this pressure? So I've noticed something about myself, and it's when I'm in groups, I hate when people are left out. So sometimes I always introduce people to people, or if I'm with a friend and I bump into someone, I introduce them, because I have this thing where I want to connect everyone. And one time I was somewhere and we went around a table and I said, let's all say one nice thing about me. I think it was my birthday. And someone said, you are a connector of people. You are really good at bringing people together. And I was like, yeah, I really am. But the point of my point is, do you ever feel this pressure? Oh my gosh, I've got to make sure everyone's getting along. And what if people are like not getting along or awkward, or they don't vibe? Do you ever feel that pressure? Or you're like, you know what, you came here at your own risk. If you don't like the other people, then that's okay. At least you tried.
No, 100%. I am the first one. I am like fluttering around the entire time, making sure that everyone's like typical hostess, like just running around, making sure that everyone's feeling safe and supported and comfortable and whatnot. I think reflecting just as you were talking, it doesn't feel too much like a pressure, because I feel like it's one of my like just innate gifts. Like I remember when I was in uni, every like piece of feedback that I ever got on placements and stuff was just how quickly I could develop rapport. And maybe that's the neurospicy chameleon in me, but I can just, I suppose, like, community and belonging is like when I've sat down and done values work, like they are the two biggest things that always come through: connection and belonging. And I think that combined with like my ability to get to know someone quickly, or at least like make them feel safe really quick and comfortably, like through years of being a physio and whatnot, again, that like rapport building, that those skills seem to come in really handy when you're running an event and you want everyone to be comfortable. So yeah, that I'm often like fluttering around, and if someone is looking awkward or off to the side, I'll first of all go up and chat to them and introduce myself and whatnot, and then look for usually some familiar faces of some people that have been to the events before that I know aren't feeling as nervous and whatnot, and try and join them up together. And I suppose that's also the other benefit of the way that it wasn't necessarily the conscious intention when I first started it, but I suppose what's come from the last almost 12 months of running this business is that really didn't want to just run friendship events. Like, it's not you come to one event and you meet your best friend and you never come back. And if that happens, amazing. But, you know, yes, making friends and meeting people and being less socially isolated is one kind of key pillar of what we do. But the others are community, like feeling like you're a part of something and having something to belong to, and that you can just keep coming back to the events, not necessarily always to make new friends. You might have quite a good friendship group, but you just want to be around other people that are like-minded and have somewhere where you can show up and meet some familiar faces and whatnot. And then the other sort of piece of that is that like self-confidence. Like, one of my favorite things is witnessing the transition of someone, or the transformation of someone showing up feeling nervous, feeling shy, standing off to the side, and by the end of it, chatting away, bubbling away, grabbing people's details. And it's just like that self-confidence piece of like, you came, you had a good time, hopefully made some friends or met some new people, but that is a skill. Like, that confidence piece is a skill that you get to take away with you and take into every other aspect of your life. You can do hard things,
and people like you for who you are. All the women I work with, a lot of them think they need to change or be skinnier or be prettier or more desirable. But the beauty of events like this is people accept you and love you for who you are. Whereas growing up, we're forced into groups, we're forced to have the same interests and all of that. But I actually, through my recovery, my eating disorder, I made friends through Instagram with people who liked taking photos of food, and they had no eating issues. They loved eating food and they just were really into photography. And I was like, wow, this is amazing. And people, just get to know you for you. And that is how confidence comes out. You don't need to change because there are people out you. There are people who are part of a tribe you don't know exists yet.
100%. There's like this beautiful quote that I love, that there are people and places you haven't met yet, or people you haven't met yet and places you haven't been to where you already belong. And that's just like, I get teary every time I hear about it, but it's so true. There is always other places and spaces and people out there. You haven't met all of the people that will love you. You haven't been to all the places that you will love. There's more. And I suppose that's that hope and optimistic piece that's coming out of me. But yeah, it's something I really try to do with the community, is remind them that, you don't have to change. You're enough. Your people are out there. And if it's somewhere here and with us, like it is somewhere.
Yes. And you recently found out you have ADHD. How was that process?
I do. Yeah, it's good. How was the process? Long, I suppose. Classic, like, coming out of lockdowns and whatnot, the rise of ADHD talk. And initially it was just like laughing at a few funny memes.
Too personal.
Then it was like, this algorithm's getting very specific. I don't know whether to feel seen or attacked. But yeah, I suppose it wasn't until like a cousin was talking about how she was thinking about going and getting diagnosed, and she had the actual DSM criteria from her GP. And I was like, I tick every box. And then I went and did a few online quizzes and they were scoring really highly. And I was like, okay, maybe there's more to this than just a few funny memes that hit a little too hard. But yeah, the actual process was, I've got thankfully a really good GP, which I know is sometimes really hard to come by. And she wrote me a referral to a psychiatrist, and within a few months I got in. So like, that part of it was thankfully really smooth, but I know that that is not easy or available for everyone, which is, I suppose, a real flaw in our mental health care system, working in the space that I do as a physio. And most of my caseload is neurodivergent. And yeah, I suppose I just want to acknowledge that I know that that's not accessible and easy for everyone. But thankfully, like I had a pretty good experience. And I also just really lucked out with the psychiatrist that I happened to end up with. I was actually referred to a different one and then had a booking with them. And they called to say that person wasn't taking new patients anymore and put me in with someone else in the clinic. And she was just so incredibly empathetic and kind. And since I have spoken about my diagnosis on social media, I've just heard so many horror stories from people that have had no education, no information, just handed the diagnosis and then just feeling really lost and overwhelmed. Yeah, that I think played a big role in that too, is just having that.
Are you on medication?
Support from the get-go.
Has it helped?
I am, yeah. So I started Dex about a month ago, and it was like, it's been life-changing, honestly. I went in with very, very low expectations. Again, like working in the space that I do, I'd heard some just probably more not great stories than good ones. But yeah, my apartment has never been cleaner. That's a start. But just in terms of, feeling like I can get things done without.
Well done. What are your biggest strengths of having ADHD?
I love this question because and again, like I first of all just want to acknowledge and completely respect that ADHD for many people feels a whole lot more like a disability and a burden than a strength. But I don't know, I think a beautiful psychologist friend of mine reminded me recently, because when I was first diagnosed, I think I had a lot of people having a somewhat public profile.
No, you're not. Don't say that.
Like I think so sound like I had. It's like 9,000 people.
Imagine 9,000 people in a room.
Have like, I know. But as in there, I guess I had a lot of people sort of message me being like, being prepared for the grief. And look, maybe the grief is still coming. I am fully open to the grief stage, but I think a combination of the fact that it was a 12-month-ish journey of being pretty sure that I had it before I actually got to the diagnosis. And also, like I said, the space that I work in, so much of, although I had failed to connect the dots with myself, we were very good at spotting it in other people, but so many of the symptoms and the strategies I was already well aware of. So it hasn't been this like huge, oh my God, life-changing thing in that sense. It's more just like reflecting on every life experience and being like, oh, that's what that was. And that just feeling quite validating, I suppose, is where I am. And the psychologist friend was like, because I was like feeling bad about, or like I was doing the diagnosis process wrong because I didn't feel grief or hadn't hit that yet. But she reminded me that there's no right or wrong way to feel when you get a diagnosis. And I typically ADHD.
No, that's all good. We were talking about, yes, the journey. And you're right. An ADHD diagnosis is so different for everyone. Some people are just like, oh, yeah, cool. I expected it. Yeah. And they're not fussed by it. Some people have done therapy before, so they've got a lot of strategies already. And then medication's just that next level on top. That's good. Oh, the strengths of your ADHD.
Yes. See, told you I just rambled and completely got us off track. Yes, the strengths. So the strengths that I feel like I have is that ability to be like creative and spontaneous and the combined type. But if you haven't noticed this far already, I'm definitely more skewed towards the hyperactive. We'll put energy in like little air quotes because I often feel like I have borderline chronic fatigue, but Dex has been helping with that too. But yeah, I'm just like I can switch on really quickly. I can be a chameleon. I've always joked that like that's allowed me to be successful in my career, I suppose, is because I can, as a physio, jump from a little 80-year-old lady with back pain to a 17-year-old teenager, like in a flick of a switch, and completely change my personality to get on board and get them on side and build rapport really quickly. And yeah, I suppose I don't know where I would have started Hype Girl Social Club. I don't think if I didn't have ADHD, like I wouldn't have, there's been a whole lot of failed, started, tried, given up, stop-start things to get here. And honestly, it's probably a miracle we've made it this far with Hype Girl Social Club. Little things like I had a podcast pre-pandemic and I've had 100 other business ideas that have never really taken off. But yeah, I think if I didn't have ADHD, I don't know that I would have had this spur of the moment idea to start a walking club and just do it. And I suppose that impulsivity of creating content on the fly and being able to be really like receptive and quick with trends that move so quickly and just being able to like pivot in, again, flick of a switch. Definitely, I think there's some of those strengths that come with it. The downside, obviously, is that like all of the executive functioning involved in
Delegate.
business, which is still yet to happen. But yeah, totally. But yeah, other than that, I suppose the overwhelm. I did have a mini meltdown on Tuesday because I'm incredibly overwhelmed at the moment. Those downsides, but yeah, I suppose the beauty, I guess, sometimes is just that. I think it's allowed me to do some really incredible things. Not with,
but the thing is, you've tried. You've actually tried, and I think that's the biggest issue. Is people have such crippling perfectionism these days that they don't try, and they're scared of failure. But what I love about all my ADHD friends who have businesses or who have these successful side hustles is they're not afraid. Like the impulsivity, they're just going for it, the creativity, they just give things a go and it ends up being a business and they do really well with it.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. That's been my experience. Like I said, the struggle is like staying on task with things and not just giving up as soon as it gets hard. But yeah, I think the thing that's really stuck with this one is that it's not just an idea. So many people ask me, they're like, why did you start Hype Girl Social Club? It's such a good idea. And I suppose I didn't start it because it's a good idea. And I think that's probably like a lot of the other things I've started and tried and failed have been good and I've been passionate about them, but they fall away when things do get hard. But I think I started this because I so deeply care about supporting women and empowering them to feel confident and strong and good about themselves and to feel connected and less lonely and to feel like they can do hard things.
Yes.
Yeah, I suppose like that real like purpose is so deeply embedded in Hype Girl Social Club that
you're intrinsically motivated. Do you know what I mean? It's not, oh, I can.
It's so to say that.
I love that.
Yeah, apparently. Other people say that too, but yeah. I think when it's like this, again, it's like deeply connected to my purpose.
100%. And let's talk about purpose. Where do you see this going? What's your ultimate goal and dream? Is it to still do physio and this, or would you give up physio to do this full time or get into events? Like, what's the biggest, wildest dream?
The biggest, wildest dream would absolutely for this to be like just the thing that I do, right? I love being a physio, but I see physio as like a vehicle that allows me to do the stuff I love, which is connecting with people and getting to know them really deeply and helping them achieve goals that they didn't think was possible. Hype Girl Social Club is another vehicle for that. And it comes with less of the downsides of working in healthcare. But I think my biggest dream, if we could be like the thing that people think of when they think about making friends in their 20s and 30s, at least that's where we're at for now. I'd love to even expand that down the track, different age groups or different demographics and things. But
I love that. And do you have a criteria for people to attend these events? Like, how do you ensure safety? What if an axe murderer comes?
That's a great question that I don't have an answer for. I can't guarantee that an axe murderer won't show up. No, I think a combination of so far everyone who has joined has been like so like-minded. Like I said, I think again, maybe it's an ADHD thing, but just somehow, despite the fact that I've never had a degree or formally studied marketing, I seem to be somewhat on the money with marketing Hype Girl Social Clubs. Yeah, I think like a combination of like our marketing, like we're capturing the people that, like I said, are open and friendly and warm and kind and empathetic, and they all have different interests or different things that they like, but there's some shared mindset stuff there. So far, no axe murderer. Maybe I need to put that in a little like tick box on the event questionnaire.
Yeah, or just, you know,
please let me know.
A little disclaimer. I was going to ask, what is your marketing strategy? Do you have one?
Yes and no. In my head, I do. So like a little while back, somewhere in the pandemic, I had done a like Instagram marketing course, just things like 8 weeks or something along those lines. So I've taken a heap of those strategies in terms of how we obviously only market through social media. That I guess is the only way we've been doing that so far. But in terms of the actual strategy, I think combination of like connection and that like connecting relatability piece, I really want to bring I've done bits of it. It's just like a time thing, but I really want to bring more of my coaching mind to the community in the sense of like more of that self-confidence and how do you get out of your comfort zone and how do you be more confident? How do you overcome loneliness? How do you make friends? Those kind of things. So some like educational type content around that. Inspiration, I suppose, is a pillar too. Again, that like hope and inspiration piece around like the people for you are out there and you can do hard things and that kind of thing. And again, that's my sort of coaching mind coming through there. Yeah. So I suppose they're our key things is like connection and relatability, inspiration.
I love that. I love social media. I think it's such a powerful tool. Like, obviously, there's some downsides of it, but I love it. I love it so much. Like, people are like, oh my God, I have to do social media and I hate it and I don't want to do it. And I get it, but I find it so easy. I find it easy to show up and record videos and all of that.
Yeah.
I'm not saying every video does well or is all that, but I'm never about the likes or the follows. If I cared more about that, it could be a bit different, but I just think it's so cool. I would love to learn marketing
Totally. Yeah, I really feel you. And I think, again, maybe that's like me and the impulsivity thing of I just picked up a camera one day and started talking. I suppose my little Instagram following initially started because I was doing sort of women's health physio stuff and noticed that there was so many taboo topics that no one spoke about. And someone had sent me these like little taboo conversation starter cards. And so again, off a whim, I was like, I'm just going to like start this thing called Taboo Tuesday. And so every Tuesday I'd pick out one of the cards and it was like talking things like sex, vaginas, relationships, money, like all of the stuff that's like taboo that we don't talk about. And I think the first time I said the word vagina on the internet, I was like, ugh, like I shut myself over it. But the thing I noticed very quickly is the content that did the best was always the stuff I was most terrified of. And I think, again, it goes back to that idea of like the content we love most is that vulnerability and like rawness and connection. And yeah, I think if there's anyone who is listening who wants to do more social media, like just pick up the camera. What's the worst that can happen? For anyone who's like on TikTok at the moment, I don't know when you're like going to release this episode, so it'll probably be old news by then, but because things move so quickly. But
can you explain what that trend is?
But like,
so basically, oh my gosh, it's people doing things like they're making a coffee and they're like, see how I make my coffee? What is it? What? I don't get it. Do you get it?
It's mindful. It's just this person. Yeah, it's just this person who like that was their content. Like they were like, see how I get ready for work? Like I am demure, I am mindful, like I don't overdo my makeup or like something along those lines. And so everyone, like typical TikTok, everyone's just jumped on it. But my point is, I think I saw that creator put a video up that was like, just pick up the camera, because I was working in a chicken shop or something, they said yesterday, and now they've got like millions of followers or whatever it is, and they've started this whole trend. And so, yeah, I think it's scary. I hear you, like, and maybe it goes back to you were saying before that we're all really shy and we're worried about what people think of us and we let what people think get in the way. And I 100%, I'm not going to sit here and pretend that, yeah, I just impulsively started. Like, I remember wanting to start a YouTube channel back when I was in high school, and I was like way too scared about what people at high school thought. Like and even once I left high school, I was still worried about what my high school friends, like people I don't even see anymore, would think about me if I started posting videos on the internet. And that held me back for so many years. And yeah, I think it was probably through doing the coaching course and then learning about how you develop self-confidence and realizing that you just have to like do the thing. Like you can't wait for the confidence to show up, that I just one day started and picked up the camera. And I know you've done videos on that too, around like how to build self-confidence, and you just do it. Like you don't.
Yes. Confidence comes from doing the stuff you're embarrassed to do, and also skill and character. For example, it's in the hard things. Like you said, doing the hard things is what leads to the biggest change. If someone's going through an eating disorder, you have to sit with the urge to purge. You have to do those hard things if you want to get to the other side. And I always say, feel the fear, but do it anyway, and care what people think, but do it anyway.
Yeah, 100%, 100%. I often talk about, like, along similar lines, it's like the antidote to fear is action. Like you just have to take a step.
Yeah, exactly. Anyway, it's Thursday. So can you give me a taboo Thursday question? I want to answer one now.
I could go grab the box if you want. I'll try and remember off the top of my head. It was like the questions were like anything women's health. It can be, there was stuff like around, have you ever experienced like painful sex, and like starting a conversation around sexual pain. And I think particularly as women, we get drilled into us from a young age that the first time's going to hurt. And so when it does, like, I guess this is normal, and no one ever really tells you that that's meant to stop, and that actually feeling it hurting the first time isn't meant to hurt either. That's not even accurate. Yeah, I think there's,
Okay.
yeah, I suppose that can be.
Have I ever had
those
painful
questions.
sex? Look, I think it depends on what pain is defined as, but I think I've been pretty lucky. I wouldn't say I've ever had painful sex that was painful in a bad way. There's that line of pain versus pleasure. Not that I'm into any of that stuff, but I think pain during sex can happen for different reasons, right? If someone's had sexual trauma, or I don't know, pelvic floor issues, or ovulation pain. I'm not sure. I'm not an expert when it comes to this, but I don't think I have. No. Painful?
Yeah, you're so right around so many different, and that's right. Like, I suppose that's what my point, right? Like, we get taught as young women that like the first time might hurt. And that's probably because you're probably nervous as shit. So your pelvic floor is going to be like hanging on for dear life. For anyone who doesn't know, pelvic floor is like the muscles that sits like a bowl or a hammock at the base of your pelvis, wraps like a figure eight around all of your openings, including vaginal wall. So when we get nervous, and this is like such a big thing, I think, particularly in young women, not even just nervous, like it can be like stressed, anxious, busy. When you do Pilates and you go to Pilates classes and they're telling you to squeeze 100 times in a 40-minute period, our pelvic floors get really tight. And going back to that, what is pain? Like, we get told, oh, I expect it to hurt, but I don't think hurt is the right word. And
Discomfort.
The right word. Maybe it might be uncomfortable because, yeah, if you're nervous or you're not properly lubricated because you're maybe rushing, or there's so many factors that go into that. But yeah, pain sex should never hurt. It shouldn't be painful. Like, and if it is, there's like something that can probably be done about that. And usually pelvic floor.
Yeah, such an important thing to bring up, because even I was looking into endometriosis the other day, and painful sex can be a symptom of that. So I didn't know. Okay. Oh my gosh. Wow. I love where this has gone. Yeah. So before
that was such a tangent.
Exactly.
It's relevant to young women though.
Before we wrap up, you did have a question from a viewer. If you want to summarize what that question was, let's answer it.
Yeah, absolutely. The question was around, like, I think, and I was saying before, this question came through in about 10 little parts, and I could watch their little brains like processing as they were writing. But it started as like, how do you navigate meeting new people when you maybe know that not everyone is going to be for you, but also it takes so much bravery for someone to ask to reach out and say, hey, do you want to catch up? But if they're not your person, or you don't get the right vibe, how do you gently let them down or say no in that sense if you're such a like chronic people pleaser? But yeah, and then I suppose the question that was coming through was like, that's, I suppose, the biggest thing that holds them back is like all of these thoughts. And maybe that speaks to that social anxiety thing around like the thought of meeting someone. There are so many unknowns, right? Like I often at events speak to people, like I'll say you're in an environment that you probably have never been to before, like a physical environment you've never been to before, surrounded by people that you've never met, probably coming alone. Like 99% of the people come to our events come alone. You're worried that if you show up that everyone's already going to know each other. That's one of the biggest questions I get. Am I walking into a clique kind of thing? I think we're all a bit scarred from high school girl drama. And how do I talk to people? What if they ask me for their details and I don't want to give them my details? What if they ask me for my details and I don't get along with them? How do I ask for their details? What if they don't like me? There's just too many barriers. And so they get so stuck in their head, and then they just don't leave the house and they don't come. So I suppose to summarize all of that, it's like, how do we meet new friends, or how do we overcome some of that social anxiety or nervousness or fear around doing something new or meeting people? Because we know we need to make new friends, but how do we?
There are so many
barriers
to tackle this. And if you're someone who experiences social anxiety, or you're worried about what other people might think, or will they like me, the first thing to do is to just write all these thoughts down. Get it out of your paper, get it out of your head and onto your paper. and write all these thoughts down, because these are not facts, these are thoughts. And unless you write them down, you are never going to be able to challenge them. Unless you write these thoughts down, you're never going to be able to actually look at them and say, is this a fact or is it a thought? And is it helpful? So this is called cognitive challenging. The thing is, people just get a thought and they just accept it. For example, if your bank charged you for something you didn't even buy, would you just be like, yeah, cool, I'll accept that? No. So why do you just accept your thoughts? Why do you accept thoughts that are negative and you don't accept thoughts that are positive? What if someone wants to be your friend? What if you go and have a great time? So we want to do that thought balancing and actually consider that the opposite of what you think could be true as well.
Yeah, 100%. I am in my physio world. I work in chronic pain and fatigue, and I spend a lot of time talking to people about their nervous systems and how like pain is protective. And I suppose that like inner voice, that inner critic is like the psychological version of that, in the sense of like we're biologically hardwired to fit in. If we go back to caveman days, right? If you don't fit in, you die. That's how it worked. And then I suppose you would know so much more about this being a psychologist, but you know, how early childhood experiences like bullying or feeling left out can shape us in that sense. And so we get to adulthood. And so now we've got this really loud inner critic who's like just spitting out thoughts. And we're like, yeah, that's true, with no challenge, or like we just accept it and take it for sure. But I suppose like normalizing that inner critic, that protective bit, in the same way that we feel pain as protection. Like you put your hand on a hot plate, we feel pain to get us to remove our hand from the hot plate. That inner critic's trying to keep you out of situations that are dangerous or scary or risk people not liking you and not fitting in because of that hardwiring. So first of all, I always love normalizing that, because when you're in somewhere unfamiliar and scary and there's so many uncertainties and actual risks, like maybe they won't like you. And if you've had an experience with bullying or they don't, that's obviously going to be tenfold. And it would be weird if you showed up and weren't nervous. Everyone that shows up in that situation is going to feel nervous and anxious. And the funny thing about anxious and nervous,
replace it.
Excited sometimes, and we just get these feelings, and it's the same. Yeah, it's that same like physiological response. Again, like the nervous system autonomic fight or flight response is racy heart rate and sweaty and a bit nauseous in your tummy and racy mind. They're all physiological. But I suppose another thing I suppose that I do with Hype Girl Social Club is, because of my knowledge of nervous systems, is I also know how to regulate them. So moving like a walk, or pottery, doing something with your hands, or having some food that you can eat that gives you something to move your body around, or doing a fitness class. Like movement is such a great nervous system regulator. Yeah, I suppose there's that element to a lot of our events as well. But yeah, for anyone who does feel nervous or anxious, I'm always really quick just to normalize that. Like every single person that comes for the first time is going to feel nervous. It'd be weird if you didn't. Obviously, there's a point where that becomes even more challenging, and people need sometimes help with psychology, and that's normal too. And if you do need more help with that, like I'd so encourage anyone to reach out to a professional and get some support. But yeah, you're so right around all of the things.
Yeah, you have to identify that inner critic. You can give it a name like Bitchy Betty. And when Bitchy Betty comes up and she's like, you shouldn't go, no one's going to like you, you have nothing to wear, you're going to look fat. They're like, okay, Bitchy Betty, I hear you, but we're not going to subscribe to that part of ourselves today, because the version of me that wants to change and make friends, doesn't subscribe to those thoughts. And the beauty is you get to choose your perception. You get to choose what decision you make based on these thoughts. And for me, yes, validate, but don't accommodate. Say, do you know what? It is reasonable that I'm going to feel a little bit apprehensive going to different people. That's normal, but don't avoid it because of the feelings, because it's normal, it's fine. And like you said, I love that strategy of replacing that perception with excitement. So whenever I am about to jump on stage or speak at an event or at a retreat and I get those butterflies, I'm like, I'm really excited because this is what I love to do. instead of perceiving it as something bad or wrong.
Yeah, totally. And knowing it's just a physiological response to something that is so normal.
Exactly. Oh my gosh. Ash, I've absolutely loved this chat. I could seriously speak to you all day. Where could people find you and how can they attend your events?
Where can they find me? I am on Instagram at Ashlani Ormond and TikTok at the same handle. And Hype Girl is at Hype Girl Social Club. Same thing. You can find us on Instagram and TikTok. We've got a Facebook community as well that you can join. And yeah, at the moment, we're for women and feminine and fighting folk in their 20s and 30s. And like I said, one day the dream is to expand that and have other events for a whole range of other different groups. But I'm still a physio, and until I can cut down some physio hours and have some more time, it's just little old me doing all of the things. I'm the CEO and the COO and the financial officer and the marketing admin assistant. So I do all of the stuff, as many business owners I'm sure would resonate with. But yeah, you can find
Amazing. And we'll link it in the show notes. Ash, thank you so much. Can't wait to see what you come up with. And I know you're going to achieve all your goals and dreams. And thank you for creating such a safe space for women.
Thank you so much.
Thank
and thank
you
you for creating a safe space for this conversation.
Thank you for listening to today's episode. I am truly grateful for you being here. If you got something out of today's show, please take a moment to leave a rating or review. To access more resources or support, check out the show notes below. See you next time.